Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my pleasure to have as my guest, Gayle Petrillo. Born and raised in Albany, New York, Gayle has called Tucson, Arizona home for 27 years. She's a coach, author, and speaker. With a career of over 35 years in healthcare leadership roles, including managing hospital departments, serving as director of HR for a large medical group, and director of physician operations for a hospital system, as well as executive director for a multi-specialty medical practice, she has seen the amazingly good, bad, and ugly leadership and communications. In 2017, Gayle lost First Impressions, an image consulting and career coaching firm, because she believes, and I quote, "We never get a second opportunity to make that all-important first impression." She coaches clients to strengthen their confidence, communication, and professional presence. As a young girl, Gayle was accidentally burned, which resulted in physical and emotional scars that lasted a lifetime. In her first book, The Accident, and its Spanish counterpart, El Accidente, she shares how she overcame fears, phobias, and body image issues, turning obstacles into positive outcomes. Her memoir, Becoming Visible, Overcoming Trauma-Based Fears, Phobias, and Self-Doubt, closes the loop by talking openly about surviving not only a burn injury as a toddler, but also domestic abuse, stalking not once, but twice, and overcoming imposter syndrome. Becoming Visible was published in April 2025 and offers a powerful voice to those healing from trauma through small, steady acts of bravery rather than dramatic transformation. Gayle serves as board chair for the American Red Cross of Southern Arizona and volunteers with the Arizona Burn Foundation. With that, Gayle, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. It's a pleasure having you on the program today.
Thank you, Dave. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story.
Well, you're welcome, and we have to give a shout out to Portia Booker.
We do.
Portia introduced us. I know you were a guest on her podcast recently, and Portia has a knack for matching her podcast guest with the appropriate podcast host. When she shared your story, we had an introductory conversation, and it was like, yeah, let's get you on the podcast. And here we are today recording our episode.
Yes, I'm excited. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I have some questions for you.
Okay,
So whenever you're ready, we'll get going.
go for it.
All right. First of all, tell our audience about the experience or experiences that have shaped your life path and your life passions.
So I need to start at the beginning. I was born as a preemie, spent months in the hospital. When I came home, I slept in a dresser drawer because I was still too tiny for my parents to trust putting me in a crib. But I quickly grew into a girly girl who loved going to places and meeting new people. I was my mom's shadow. On a cold fall day in upstate New York, Mom and I went hand in hand to a neighbor's house to a mother-daughter tea party. Well, it was 1956, but tea was not the drink of choice, coffee was. And so as we walked into the neighbor's house, you could smell the fresh cookies coming out of the oven and the coffee that was brewing. And as I went to climb up to the table, I reached for one of those cookies and knocked a full, fresh pot, 40-cup pot, percolator full of coffee off the table and all over me. I burned, scalded 40% of my body, from my breast to my navel, and was hospitalized, getting treatments for months. My parents didn't know if I would live or die. And When I came home, I was obviously a changed girl. I became afraid of everyone and everything. I had fears and phobias. You name a phobia, I had it. From snakes and spiders to heights and needles and all kinds of things. Some rational, others not so rational. And so I grew up very intentionally being invisible. I never raised my hand in school because I did everything to avoid drawing attention to myself. I covered the mirrors in my bedroom because I didn't want to look at me and assumed no one else wanted to look at me even though you don't see my scars. When you see me, they're covered by my clothes. So my passion today for advocating for burn survivors and for burn prevention came in September 12th of 2019. As I launched my business, I did it with a fashion show. And the second one was in front of 200 people. And while the entertainment was going on the runway, I was backstage with Jean, the founder of Beads of Courage, who was the recipient of the fundraiser. And I always tease her, I live vicariously through her travels. And so very innocently, I said, "So where have you been?" Assuming she would say China, Japan, Chicago, certainly not Tucson or Phoenix. And she said, "I actually spent a couple of days in the burn unit of Phoenix Children's Hospital, taking care and supporting the parents and children who were burned." I had no words. My mouth opened, no words came out, just tears started to flow like a waterfall. And we know timing is everything. That's exactly when the MCs called me to the podium. And I went out wiping my tears and faced the 200 people in the audience, most of whom I didn't know. And I apologized for the tears and I explained I had been backstage with Jean, and she shared that she had been with burn survivors and their families. And for the very first time in my life, I was 65, I said out loud in front of 200 strangers, "I wish my parents and I had had that kind of support when I was burned as a toddler." Dead silence filled that ballroom. I didn't know what to do with the silence, so I just went on with the fundraising speech. And at the end, I went out towards the doors to say thank you for coming to all the attendees. And a woman who's fairly well known in Tucson, although I didn't know her at the time, Kathy Bell, approached me. Her daughter, I later learned, was born with a very rare blood disorder and lived for 20 some odd years with blood transfusions. She got a bone marrow transplant 11 years ago, and last year the whole family flew to Germany to meet her blood donor. So she came up to me at the end and said, "Girl, you have a story to tell." And I was like, "No, sorry, no story here, but I'm happy to learn yours." So she invited me to coffee and then lunches and then dinners, all with lots and lots of wine. And by February of 2020, we all know what happened when the world shut down.
Yep.
So I started sharing my story. I started journaling it for the very first time. And it's the foundation of my first book, The Accident, which has been translated into Spanish. And it's mostly for kids. Fast forward a few years, and as I started speaking and sharing that story, more and more stories were coming out with the audiences. And that became the foundation for my second book, my total memoir, which was published in April of last year.
Oh, that's quite a progression. One of the things, Gail, as I was, thinking about our podcast, is how much burn survivors. I mean, I never heard of like Burn Survivor Week. I've never heard of this. And the thing that struck me is that how much awareness is really put out there that burn survivors experience as much trauma as anybody that's experienced any other trauma, from loss, from abuse. Um, can you speak to that a little bit? Is that something that's been underground until recent years?
Yes, I would say so. The Arizona Burn Foundation is probably about 20 years old, and they've been very much the forefront in Arizona and a few other states to advocate for burn survivors. They're in the hospital with social workers. They have advocacy programs and camps. Likewise, the American Burn Association has been around a long, long time, and they as well have programs and advocate for burn survivors. And there's also the Phoenix Society of Burn Survivors. They hold an biannual international conference. I was fortunate enough to attend 2 years ago. And through those organizations, they have educational courses, curriculums that we as volunteers take into the classroom. So does the American Red Cross. And so, unfortunately, unless you've been burned in a car accident, burned in a house fire, burned by getting scalded by hot liquid like me, the general population does not know or connect the dots between the traumas you mentioned and burn trauma. And so we definitely, and I will add, it's very well known that the misperception is what we see mostly on TV and movies. You see burn actors and actresses that have makeup pretty much making them look ugly and scary and horrific. And so, unfortunately, it paints a very negative picture of us, whether our scars show or not. And so people are put off by us as soon as they learn I have scars because I was burned XYZ way, right? And so we need to change that. And that's part of what I am advocating for, along with several people in those organizations that I previously mentioned.
Yeah, and burns carry its own set of emotional scars, and I think these would be honored as much as the other traumas that contribute to emotional scars. And considering all the other challenges you had to put up with in your life, that had to probably magnify the need for invisibility as a result of burn trauma.
Well, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, fears and phobias, body image issues,
Yeah.
lack of confidence. As I went into the work world, I struggled for years with imposter syndrome. And so while the physical scars mostly heal, I mean, I still have them, but they're not raw and bad anymore. But I'll have them the rest of my life. Those emotional scars really take a toll on survivors. And we need help to get over the stigma, the trauma, those emotional scars. And so I advocate for people to get that help, whether it's in peer groups or speaking with mental health professionals, people in the hospital as you're healing, people when you get out of the hospital, because the healing just starts in the hospital and continues, especially for very severe burns long after. I mean, they're lifelong, lifelong.
Yeah, and as with any other type of trauma, we need to learn to transcend it. We need to learn to integrate the impact that it had on our lives and to move forward with renewed purpose, knowing that our life is going to be forever changed because of what's happened.
Exactly. And some of these organizations I mentioned, in particular, Arizona Burn Foundation, has programs for kids that are going to be re-entering the school environment, for adults re-entering the occupational career environment. And they go in, especially with kids, they go in now and they prepare the students in sort of an auditorium setting. Now, William was burned. He's the same kid he always was. He may look a little different, but he's the same kid you knew. And they do that in work environments as well for people, which is immensely helpful. I mean, I didn't have any of that. I had no support. My parents had no support. There's no book to teach you how to raise your kids. There's certainly no book that tells us how to support our kids when they struggle with such adversity.
Absolutely. I mean, no parenting book in the world is going to prepare you for that. And back in the 1950s, support groups were unheard of. You
Right.
you basically just worked it out on your own, sucked it up, and you just went underground with whatever trauma occurred, and it was a big secret in those days, among other things. In the
Right.
50s and 60s, there were a lot of secrets that were kept in
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
households.
Yeah. It was don't air your dirty laundry, whatever that meant. And it was
Yeah.
very broad, right? I have family members that to this day don't know unless they watch my podcasts or are online with me. They don't know my story.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing to create awareness, not only about your story as a burn survivor, but to create that advocacy to bring awareness to other burn survivors who are still maybe struggling to find their voice.
Yes.
Speaking of finding your voice, I know the title of your podcast appearance with Portia was "A Burn It Too." Took her voice. At 68, she took it back. I think you've talked about some of the progression that helped you at 68 get your voice back. You talked about, speaking at that gathering in Tucson, journaling. Was there anything else that was key for you in reclaiming your voice at 68, in addition to what you've already mentioned?
Yeah. So I have been very fortunate to have amazing mentors and an amazing husband. My husband and I just celebrated 45 years of marriage. So we've been together like almost 50 years. And he is my best friend, my most avid supporter. And he encourages me to get out of my comfort zone. And that is just tremendously helpful, useful, resourceful, all of that. In addition to that, over the past 5 years, I've had opportunities like being on your show, being on TV and radio, speaking in front of Kiwanis groups and Rotary clubs and women's lunches and whoever will have me. I was a keynote speaker at a charter school for their graduation last May. I was a keynote speaker at a women's conference in DC in September of this past year. All of those build on my confidence. They build on my ability to continue to share new stories. And if I've learned nothing else on this journey, it's that as I share my stories and shed my secrets, people lean in because their story resonates with my story. We all have secrets and stories. And so by sharing, I'm healing, even though I didn't know I had something to heal from. And I'm giving other people permission through my resilience and vulnerability to share their story so that they too can heal. That's what we need to do. That's the support we need to provide one another.
Absolutely. And it's the power of community when we do that.
Yes. Yes.
Speaking of your book, and I told you before we started recording tonight that I had your first few pages had me at Larry Bird. I'm a big Boston Celtics fan, and I smiled knowing that your dad had Larry Bird and his Boston Celtic teammates, that for over for dinner and fitting them with clothes and everything. But I know the book isn't focused on Larry Bird and the Celtics. So tell our audience about your book, Becoming Visible, From Burn Survivor to Storyteller, and what you want readers to take away from it, Gayle.
Yeah, thank you. So this book is my memoir. It's all the stories, all the secrets. There are no more. They're all in this book, or at least as of the time it was published in April. Who knows what the future holds, right? Nobody has a crystal ball. So for me, as I said earlier, and I don't want to be terribly repetitive, but I've learned through sharing these stories when I speak to audiences, whether it's 3, 30, or 300 people, inevitably at least one person approaches me, kind of quiet at first and demure, and shares their story, whether it was a veteran burned by an IED or someone in a house fire or a car accident, or fell into or was pushed into a fire pit or whatever. And they say, look, I never wear shorts. I only wear long pants. I never wear short sleeve shirts. I never wear a bathing suit. And when they tell me that, that's generally the first time they've shared that story with someone outside of their confident circle, their familial circle. And I always get very emotional because I know what it takes to be vulnerable and share those stories. But I also know how freeing it is once we do that. And so there are stories in my book about people, without naming names, that have come forward in those situations and shared their story, and the kind of response that it generated from the other people, whether it was work colleagues or other people in the audience. And so, you talk about my dad. I miss him. He's been gone about 20 years. Both my parents, I lost my mom 2.5 years ago, a week before she turned 90, very unexpectedly. And they were amazing parents. And this book, Becoming Visible, is really a tribute to them because they were my heroes. They were my supporters. Yes, we didn't air the dirty laundry, but my dad, I can remember him always looking at me and giving me a big smile and saying, "You're beautiful inside and out." I never believed it, but he told me that over and over and over again. And my parents pushed me in a good way to be more visible than I was comfortable being. I was in Girl Scouts. I played tennis. I did those things because my parents pushed me in a good way to try new things and meet new people. And it was so difficult for me. I mean, I had no confidence. Self doubt was this big, but I did those things. My mom was our Girl Scout leader. So it was comfortable to be there because she was there. She was our leader. And so I talk about those things and those stories in my book so other people can relate to that and hopefully begin their healing. Or if they're lucky enough to not have struggled themselves with a trauma of any kind, to maybe make them more aware of people around them, of people like me that have scars, visible or invisible, to be more empathetic. One of the other things I say in both books is to share your smile because they're contagious. What happens when you smile? You smile back, and that makes people's day. Compliment people, what beautiful blue eyes you have. That's a pretty top, whatever it is. And then when people compliment you, take that to heart. Don't say, "Oh, that old dress," or whatever. Just say thank you. It makes you feel good and it makes the person who's complimenting you feel good as well. Wouldn't the world be a better place today if we all did that together?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned two things. I'll start backwards with the compliment piece. It's just so important that we recognize the goodness in people beyond the physical appearance, beyond
Yeah.
the physical scars. But it's amazing how many people are either conditioned to kind of downplay compliments or don't feel they deserve to
Yeah.
be complimented because of the perceived lack of self-love that they have. But Gail, we were all born with love. You know,
Yeah.
we don't have to we shouldn't have to earn that. It shouldn't be transactional. It just should be we're born with love.
Right.
Why
Right.
should we have to earn it?
Yeah, we shouldn't. But it's much easier said than done.
I used to work in an addictions treatment center over 27, well, actually it was for 27 years, but I started back in the 80s and I've been retired now for yeah, it's going on 13 years, but we
Wow.
we we talked about we talked about vulnerability. And when somebody's been hurt, they've been ostracized, they've been stigmatized. And addiction is a very stigmatized disease. As you mentioned about the physical scars of burn survivor being creating a stigma in and of itself based on appearance. It's tough to be vulnerable because I think, and I have my clients tell me if I'm vulnerable with somebody, it means I'm going to get hurt. So therefore, I'm not going to be vulnerable. But here's the thing with vulnerability is that if I'm going to be vulnerable with, let's say with you, let's say I am a burn survivor, and I know you're a burn survivor. I'm going to say Gayle is going to be that person who I need at this particular moment to help bring me out of my shell. Now, does that mean that we need to establish an ongoing relationship? No, it doesn't imply trust. It implies that for the moment, I can trust you with an aspect of myself that I couldn't trust anybody else with. And what happens after that? I'm feeling vulnerable enough to share that with you, but what happens after that happens. It doesn't imply that we're going to have an ongoing relationship. It just
Right.
implies that for the moment, you are the needed person in my life to help me take the next step.
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head. Exactly right. And taking the first step is what leads to building trust, right? Because no one's going to share if they don't have trust. And so being vulnerable, the other piece to that is listening. So I learned as a SOAR peer support person to go into the hospital or into an outpatient clinic after someone's been released from the hospital, right? Everybody's not immediately ready. It took me 65 years to come out of hiding. It takes people different amount of times to get comfortable with their story and their change. And so sometimes it's just being the other person in the room with quiet. There's a acronym I learned years and years ago at a conference, and it's WAIT. Why am I talking? And I share that. I shared it in a conference this morning, and people were quickly writing that down like, wow, that's like magic, right? But we're all very uncomfortable with silence. We feel like we have to fill that void, and we don't. Because when we're silent, the other person's brain is working on, is this someone I can trust? Is it my time to be vulnerable? What shall I share or not? So rather than invading their space, trying to prompt them, come on, it's okay, talk. Don't do that. Let them talk it there when it's right for them.
Yeah, it's basically it's called holding space for somebody's story. And Gail, I've had other podcast guests who've shared their story for maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, and I just let it go. I'm not going to interrupt. I'm not going to stop. The story's going to unfold the way it's meant to unfold. So I sit there basically as a silent, compassionate witness, and then when I'm done, I reflect. But it empowers the individual to share their story in a way that's going to suit them, not in a way that's going to suit me, but in a way that's going to suit them. So and the silence is good, I think, for both parties because as the listener, I can form some impressions or observations that I can share after. So sometimes a podcast guest will ask me, did I go too much into my story? I said, no, your story unfolded the way it was supposed to unfold. And my job was to hold space for you so that could happen.
Right? That holding space is a fairly new terminology. And so I like to phrase it in the WAIT, WAIT, but it's the same thing, right? You give people space. Yeah, it's so important.
Let's talk about first impressions. Tell us about first impressions. What inspired it? Who requests your services? And what's the mission?
Yeah. So the mission is to help people, my clients, present their best first impression because we only get one opportunity to make a great first impression, a first impression one time. That's it. We can make second, third, and fourth impressions, but only one, the first one. And so it comes out of understanding when I started interviewing the importance of being verbal, being articulate, sharing the importance of why I'm the right candidate for that job. I was very lucky all through my career. I landed almost every job I applied for. Most people don't have that. And for someone who had no confidence, I had confidence in what I knew I could do in a work world, not a personal world. So I had two personas really, my personal persona and my work persona. And First Impressions was born out of that. because as any one of us go to the grocery store, Walmart, wherever, Target, and you look around, unfortunately, what do you see? You see people that clearly did not look in the mirror before they walked out that door. And I feel the need to help those people because we never know where we're going to be when we find our next spouse, next employer, next best friend. Doesn't matter. And so to walk around as though, well, it doesn't matter, I'm just running in and out for groceries, I struggle with that, frankly. And one of the skills and one of the things I do for my clients is personal stylist. I shop in people's closets. I take them shopping to decide if you're a big woman or a small woman or a guy or what your career is. We find clothing to fit you and your life. And I get such joy out of that. I just love it. And my clients love the one-on-one time that we get when we do those things. Excuse me. So in addition, first impressions make standout resumes for our clients because right now, roughly 100 people apply for every open position. And my clients need to stand out. So they go from the no or maybe pile to the yes pile and get a call for an interview. Before they get that interview, I work with them on mock interviews. So here's, given the position you're applying for with my HR background, what questions do we think you're going to be asked? I mean, everybody basically says, so Dave, tell me about Dave. Tell me who Dave is, that kind of thing. But it's beyond that. And a lot of people, when you ask that question, they go on for 10 minutes. Oh, my dog's name is Harry, and I this and that. Nobody cares. That's not what they're getting at, right? They want to know that you're listening, that you have eye contact. They want to know that you're articulate. And yes, I've spent 27 years in Tucson, but here's the strengths I bring that you advertised for. So we get to the second, third, and fourth questions. And then I prep my clients also with what questions are you going to pepper the interviewer or team interviewer group with? Because to say, thank you, I have no questions, that does not land well with an interviewer. They want to know again that you've listened, that you've done your research on the company, you understand the culture, the mission, vision, values, and you can do that by asking the right questions. And it's never, how much are you going to pay me? When can I start? What are the benefits? That's all later. You have to get through this first, second, and likely third interview before you even go down that path. Then when you get offered a position, my clients come back to me and say, so they've offered me 45,000. I make 32. That's great, right? I should accept it. And I'm like, hold on one second. Did you ask what is the salary range? Did you talk to them about the fact that you've done this for 8 years and 45 is not the mid-range or near the higher end? You're not going to get 85 if that's the top, no matter who you are, but maybe you can ask for 55 or 60. And they're always anticipating that that candidate is going to challenge and negotiate. So why leave money on the table? The worst that can happen is that they say, I'm sorry, this is what we can offer because of the rest of our employee levels or whatever. They are not going to very likely pull that interview or that job offer from you because you asked the question. If anything, you've earned some respect now. And then networking skills. So how do we meet our prospective employers? A lot of times LinkedIn is great, other search engine companies, right? But also it's in networking. Tucson's a community of about 1 million people. It's a very small, tight-knit community. And so like me, if you're in the healthcare arena, I know a lot of people in the healthcare arena. If I don't make a good first impression or if I have a bad reputation, I'm not likely going to land a job in Tucson. And so it's all about networking. And what are the questions you ask when you meet people? What's your handshake like, right? Is it limp? Is it a killer shake? And I have tricks of the trade to help you, my clients, get past those first steps.
Yeah, that's quite a comprehensive package. And you're right about the fact that every prospective employee should go in with questions about the company. Employers want their prospective employees to be vested in the mission. They want them to do their research. And that's something I learned, when I first started my job searches, is that ask questions about the company, ask questions about their mission. If they have some philanthropy activities going on, ask about their philanthropy.
Yep.
If they contribute to burn awareness organizations, ask
Yeah.
them about that. Ask them, why that particular charity. How does that align with their mission? How does that, align with their humanitarian initiatives?
Right.
Things like that show that you're interested. Now, you may not get the job, but if it's not going to be because of lack of trying or lack of preparation, and that's going to prepare you for the next interview. And then you just never know when you might get that phone call from that same company because the candidate didn't pan out saying, "We still have your resume on file. We were impressed with the way you interviewed. Are you interested in considering employment with our company at this time?" So everything you do, even if you don't get a job, is going to make a lasting impression.
Yeah. No,
So
have you been in my room when I've been working with my clients? Because that's exactly what I tell them. Every interview, don't say no to an interview because it gives you experience and you learn something from every opportunity. And you're right. You never know when you're going to get that call. This job wasn't right for you, we don't think, but this job may be. Will you reconsider? And so that's huge. And so one of your questions, Dave, was who do I work with? So I work with juniors and seniors in high school who are either going to graduate and land a full-time job or get interviewed with college fraternity, sorority, athletic directors. I also work with juniors and seniors in college because they are preparing for their life career. And then I coach executives because many, many times when we first get into the C suite or want to get into the C suite, we don't have the confidence. We don't understand that the skills we have are transferable into other positions. And so I work with executives on that. And then women and men in their 40s and 50s who are transitioning. Nurses, what do I do? How are my skill sets going to move me to something next, right? Sales, you've got great listening skills. You've got great customer service, patient experience skills, and so communication skills. And all those are transferable into your next career.
yeah, and uh, everything we do builds on the next opportunity. So I was intrigued by a statement on your website. I wanted to explore this a little bit with you.
Sure.
And what the statement is the image you project is analyzed in the first 3 to 7 minutes of meeting someone. What is a prospective employer, a prospective potential friend or comrade down the road? What are they going to tune into for that first 3 to 7 minutes that's going to make or break that relationship?
Right. No, that's a great question. And actually, I'm going to correct you. It's 3 to 7 seconds.
Oh, three to
Oh,
seven. Okay.
so quick. And what are they basing that judgment on? You haven't even opened your mouth yet. So they're basing it on how you look, your body language, your eye contact. Are you listening? All those soft skills that no one teaches anymore. I teach those because it's hugely important when you're interviewing, but also after you get a job, right? So many people walk into a new job, regardless of the level of employment. And they're like, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is make you take your beard off, right? Well, why would that be important? Have you talked to Dave and seen if he's comfortable in that beard or not? What's working, what's not, and focus on the things that aren't working. And that's what I do with my executive coaching a lot. But those 3 to 7 seconds happen so quickly. And that's what I um, sort of alluded to earlier, which was the people you run across in Target, Walmart, whatever, right? They have not made sure they put something on their collar, put a little makeup on, whatever it is, right? their butt's hanging out, their boobs are hanging out, whatever it is. It's just not pleasant to look at. And I encourage my clients when they're standing in line at the grocery store or whatever to talk to the person in front or behind them if the line is long, because you don't know what that person does. They may not have a job for you, but you don't know who's in their circle of influence. They may just know that so and so is looking for an HR director and you might fit that bill. So never discount the people you run into intentionally or unintentionally every opportunity you get.
Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, that it would make sense 3 to 7 seconds because it's what they're going to tune into initially. That's going to determine how far they're going to go with the interaction.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why that smile is so important. It's contagious.
And it's interesting, because sometimes I'll have people say to me, I like your energy, and they can determine that like the first 3 to 7 seconds that they meet you. That if you have really good energy, a really good aura about you, or just a good demeanor about you, or
Yeah.
just even the way you present non-verbally
Yes.
and body language is just so key for them to cue into whether or not they're going to want to get to know you more.
Yeah.
Gail, I wanted to shift focus to Burn Awareness Week, which is the week of February 2nd, and we're recording very close to the advent of Burn Awareness Week. We're recording on the evening of January 29th, and so the following Monday is going to be Burn Awareness Week. What are some of the activities that are done to increase awareness in this area?
Yeah. So one of the things that the Arizona Burn Foundation and the American Red Cross do is they partner with local fire departments and they go into particularly low income communities and install smoke detectors. And they're the kind that have a 10-year battery life. And so we don't remove the batteries, we just install these, whether it's 3 or 5 in a home, to make sure people are prepared in the event of a home fire. In addition, Arizona Burn and other organizations, Red Cross as well, have curriculums that we go into the schools and we teach wildfire prevention, house fire prevention, how to map an escape out of your home. And those things, right? When you are in a classroom of kindergarten and second graders, these kids are sponges. They soak up everything you say, and they're going to go home with their little workbooks and tell mom and dad, hey, we have to map out our escape plan because that's what Red Cross told us to do today. And so I love working with the kids because, as I said, they are sponges and it puts a smile on my face because I know they're listening.
How many states in the United States participate in Burn Awareness Week? Is this a uniform participation with all 50 states, or is it just certain states that do this?
No, I would say it probably, and I am guessing here, but it probably revolves around where there are burn centers in the United States, like Massachusetts, the Boston area, Baltimore, Maryland, certainly areas in California, Phoenix, Arizona, and places like that, because they have the population, they have the community, and again, that partnership a lot with local fire departments is huge.
Yeah, and I would love to see Burn Awareness Week be a part of all 50 states in the union, regardless of whether or not there's a burn center. Because if you look at individuals that are either burned in house fires, that die in house fires, there that's a reason to do Burn Awareness Week
It is.
nationwide.
That's all preventable, right? That's all preventable. Accidents happen in a split second, and we lead such busy, multitasking lives. If we're not aware of turning our pot and pan handles inward and not outward, if we're not aware of keeping a 3-foot barrier between the stove and littles and elderly people in our families, if we don't have working fire extinguishers near the kitchen, smoke detectors, of course, just awareness of, where are the kids on hot summer days? Are they running barefoot on the concrete and get sunburned feet? In the winter, are they exposing their hands and feet to frostbite? Those are burns that people don't think about, right? I was in the hospital a while back visiting someone, and my sister and I were in the cafeteria. And there was a woman sitting there with a hot cup of coffee, a dinner plate, a toddler on her lap, a computer on the table, and she was totally unaware of her surroundings. And it was so interesting. Both my sister and I got up simultaneously and pushed that coffee mug away. And at first she was like, what? And then we were like, I'm a burn survivor. My sister's a burn survivor. We don't want that to happen to your child. And she went from to, oh my gosh, thank you. Right? So as we think about and we're in those situations, it's up to each of us to have that awareness and share that awareness so it spreads in a good way, like a wildfire.
Yeah, because until it happens to you, you're
Yeah.
not very mindful of that. You just take for granted, well, there's a cup of coffee, it's going to be fine where it is. But if it's close enough for a toddler to get to it and pull it down,
Yeah.
then it's too close.
Yes.
It's
Ex-
too close.
Yeah. And the other thing Burn Awareness Week does is make people aware through different websites, Red Cross, Arizona Burn, my website, is how to treat burns, how to classify burns, how to prevent burns, all of that. It's the time to bring awareness to all of that, right? People think, oh, I got burned. Put butter on it, put margarine on it, put mayonnaise on it, put something on it. No, 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 don't do that. All burns, once we get a burn, whether how big or small, put cool, clean water on it for 10 to 20 minutes. And then assess it and see, is it blistering? Is it swelling? Is it getting really red and hot? That's when you want to make sure that you get first aid treatment by a professional, 911, urgent care, hospital emergency room, right? Because I know several people who have had strokes and heart attacks, and their biggest fear is, I don't want to call 911. What if it's not a heart attack, right? All the professionals know they would rather you come in and discharge you because of a false alarm than have a significantly more deep burn, heart attack, stroke, whatever.
Yeah. It's always good to err on the side of caution with anything that could be a potential crisis situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's why we have Burn Awareness Week.
Yeah, and like I said, I'd love to see this spread nationwide.
You and me both. Let's make that happen.
You got it. Let's hold positive energy and just
Yeah.
push it in that direction. So,
Yeah. Put it out there.
Gail, you've left us with a lot of good information tonight, a lot of great wisdom takeaways. But I'm going to ask you to give our audience one ultimate takeaway, one ultimate teaching for today that you want to leave us with.
So it's two things, and it's a bit repetitive. However, share your smile because it's contagious and it will make someone's day. And when you smile, your body softens. You can stand more erect, you're more self confident, and you're more articulate. The other thing is to share your story and shed your secrets because it helps you heal and helps others heal.
Thank you. Those are wonderful teachings to live by and to spread to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Gail, we'll give you a little opportunity here to promote yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tell us how individuals can contract for your services through First Impressions, purchase your books, find out more about everything else that you got going on in your life. What's the best way for them to do that?
Thank you. So the best way to reach me is through my website, and it's First Impressions Plural, the number 1.com. And you can buy my books on my website. You can get information about the services I provide. and just reach out and let's have a conversation.
That sounds great. And all of your contact information, book information will be in the episode notes when our podcast goes live. Gayle, thank you so much for just a delightful conversation. You are truly doing some great work. You have a great personality. Your light just shines naturally. So, and I know you're going to continue to be a bright light to those who are fortunate enough to cross your path. So thank you for spending time with me tonight. Hopefully we can do this again in the future.
I would love that. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Dave. I appreciate what you do for your listeners.
Thank you. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.